Talk Show.
Recorded live. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Genesis Science Fiction Radio Show. It's an online radio show. It's a service of the BlackScienceFictionSociety.com website. This is the August 9th, 2013 episode, and tonight's special guest is Robert Garrett. He's got a lot of irons in the fire. We'll go over them all at once. Well, no, we're not going to do it all at once. But if you'd like to take a look at some of his work online, you can find it at Xmoor Studios, Xmoor Studios.blogspot.com. And let's see, we've got Xmoor, XMOR.bigcartel.com. And I've got one other one here, but it's actually a long link. But we'll get to that in a little while. So, Robert, how are you doing tonight?
Oh, I'm fine. Just Friday night, just relaxing.
And what city are you coming up to us from?
I'm coming to you from New York.
And have you lived there for a long time?
I was born and raised in Jersey City. So, but I've always been a New York person. I worked in New York back and forth, always. So I'm from Jersey, but you could say I'm more of a New York person.
It just kind of speaks a little bit more to you than telling us you came from where The Sopranos was based, right?
Yeah, exactly. I didn't fit in too well with that group.
Yeah. So, like, how long were you in Jersey before you kind of crossed over the way there to New York?
Oh, it was. Well, basically, when I crossed over to New York, I was in my teens. Me and my friends always, if you wanted to find me, you either found me in the library or you found me in downtown Manhattan, going back and forth. So once I got to be a teenager and able to get out the house, that was my major thing of let's go, let's get out of here. You know, the culture, everything about the city always attracted me. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, it's got so much going on. I mean, literally, you can find anything you want in New York, and that's got to be a pretty big appeal for anybody in their teens, anybody who wants to explore, get out. They're not, an introvert. So, I mean, what kind of interest did you have at that age that kind of drew you all the way over there?
Oh, man, film, music. I was into everything. I was a big... It says stay a nerdish kind of individual, so I was back and forth in all of the museums and libraries and hanging out in like Washington Square Park, where it was like a great artistic thing, not like it is now, but it was like a lot of artists and musicians were hanging there, so we'd be there till 1, 2 o'clock in the evening just chilling in the park.
And what kind? I mean, you mentioned film and music and things like that. Did you, was that part of your creative bent at that time, or were these more passive pursuits, checking things out, learning things, seeing what else is out there?
Well, when I was a kid, like I had a stepdad who was like very much into like all of the arts and everything, and we would sit and watch like Channel 13 and all of the history shows and everything. So it was just something that I always embraced, especially film. I grew up on the black and white classics. So I would study them and look at Casablanca and everything else. So it was like always, attracted me. So when it was getting to New York, that's where you found all this information and everything. So it was better to be there than hanging out, in the streets and everything.
Yeah. So now, were you in high school in Jersey, and then you were hanging out in New York?
Yeah, I went to high school, and I had a year in college in Jersey, but I went to downtown Jersey City. I went to college and graduated high school, graduated from there, and then I went on to the New School of Social Research in Manhattan, and I took up writing courses at the New School of Social Research because I wanted to follow a career as a criminal justice major, but as I got more involved in it, I realized that a lot of the laws weren't really built on, us and taking it for granted our situations and everything. So it kind of alienated me in that sense.
Yeah, just a quick aside. My mother got her master's in criminology, and she kept telling us that she did that because she knew that she was going to have boys. So I don't know what good it did her, but and then ended up really pretty much, she was very fortunate. Our family was fortunate because the kind of work she did was mostly volunteer, political, things like that. So it wasn't like she had to go and get a full-time job. So
right.
Now when you started in lighting, when you talk about lighting, are you talking about television or are you talking about film? I mean, what?
Oh, I started off because I grew up, when I first got into writing, I got involved in it after reading Lord of the Rings and then the Foundation trilogy by Isaac Asimov. So that was my big thing. I was a huge fan of science fiction and fantasy, and still to this day I am. But I tried to incorporate it into films because that was, like I said, when I grew up, that was everything. For me, I was always in front of the television watching all of these different films. Channel 13 was like my, PBS channel was it. I just wanted to watch that and see the classics and listen to, like, the directors and writers. So my whole basis in the beginning was writing film. I used to take my little notebooks around and, terrorize people with this handwritten stories that I would put in there. A little black boy talking about, come on, you want to read it. But, some people did. Other people just took the notebook and threw it down and kept moving. But,
was it more like fantasy? Were you into science fiction to the point where you started out writing that? I mean, what kinds of stuff did you write that early on?
Oh, that early on, I kind of mixed it in, and it was more action adventure. It wasn't real fantasy yet because I was kind of intimidated with the whole, the way Lord of the Rings was. I grew up in the projects. Nobody was talking like that. So,
right.
To me it was like, okay, how can I get to that level without, really, having that kind of creative background? So mine was more action adventure, ghetto stories like Rita Hardway breaking out in the hood, so I kind of based it on that and expanded slowly into, more sophisticated writing.
Yeah. Now, so you're doing this writing. Did you have a chance to translate it into, some sort of visual medium, film, comic book, any kind of art, something like that? Or did you just kind of stay the course and stuck with the writing from a creative point of view?
Well, it was first with the writing in, I'd say about the 5th grade. So it was like writing the basic things. Then my teachers started to notice, all of this, notebooks and writing. And I got a few of my English teachers to read through it. So they encouraged me to, expand on it. And then that was when somebody got me involved with comics. And I started looking at comic books, and I'm like, wait a minute now. So that kind of took me away from the fantasy genre, and I wanted to do my own. First I was writing Thor, all these characters, but then I was like, wait a minute, I want to write something that's, Black man comics. I did do that. Put it in there, a guy in tights running around. And seeing it and looking at the market and everything. So, it was a big experiment for me to try to incorporate that into first, a novel. And then I tried to put it into, doing a comic book. So it was a learning lesson for me.
Yeah, and did you create a pretty well, populated world for your writing, or were you doing like singular stories that kind of were set differently? Had you built a consistent universe for your writing?
Oh, that's my biggest thing. As far as when I was going to school, we used to get our group of guys together, and after school we would take off. And one of my friends had a great basement. We would literally go, close the door, go in the kitchen, buy a cake mix, get some cake and Kool-Aid, and go downstairs and just stay there for hours creating concepts and universes. So I grew up with that, like doing it like 5-6 times a week, just creating ideas behind how to put universes and building our own characters and everything else. So my biggest thing is I love to create universes, characters, and backgrounds.
And how about now you did that? what happened in terms of maybe getting it to readers or other people in your class, or did you do anything where you could duplicate your work and then pass it around, or was it mostly kind of laying the groundwork for that at that time?
At the time, yes. It's especially in the beginning years, so it was more like laying the groundwork because most of the time nobody really wanted to read it. So it was like just put it together and annoying people that I know that would read it and get them to do it. And, of course, sometimes the girls would go and, you create a character for, a girl you liked or whatever. Try to get some brownie points while you can. And because half the time it was like, oh, God, you're a nerd. But, it impressed and then it helped out in certain aspects.
Man, I mean, I never even thought of that. Did you get some play from that?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Man, now I learn about all of that. It's funny. I went to a 40th high school graduation reunion a few weeks ago, and there were some girls that came up. Oh yeah, or excuse me, women. Oh yeah, I had the biggest crush on you in high school. Oh yeah, I really liked you in high school. And
now you tell me.
Yeah, that's exactly. I had to make an announcement. I said, for those of you women out here, I'm flattered, but unless you're ready to get busy now, don't be telling me what I missed out on. So, but that's brilliant, getting play from doing that. So, but I mean, obviously, that's only a part of why you did it. With this group, did you guys stick together long enough that you kind of created? Some infrastructure, or was it mostly kind of, again, laying the groundwork for later?
Oh, it was so in and out. Most of the time, people would come in and work and create. It was like maybe 2 or 3 of us that were totally serious about, working on projects and trying to build these worlds. So those were the people that stayed there. It was like 2 friends, my best friends in there. So we just created, and both of them having to be artists. So I would most of the time be the man with the stories, and they would just be illustrating, and we put it all together, and we get these concepts, and even back then I had an idea on how I wanted my books to look. So, if you really couldn't draw, you really didn't need to come in my direction because I would tell you, nah, we're not doing this.
Mm-hmm.
Stick figures were not working. So we kind of kept it in that one. So both of my friends were really good artists. So I would most of the time create the universes, and then we would battle over who was better because I was a DC guy, and then they were a Marvel guy. So then we get sidetracked into the whole Superman can't beat the Hulk or whatever. We're trying to put things together and put these concepts going, and we finally got a book together. And I remember it because it was called Star God. Cliche-ish. But it was a cosmic hero, and my friend drew the book, and we went and put it all together and stapled the books around, and we were showing it to everybody to get their opinion on what the book is, how they felt about the book, and got back some pretty decent responses. So we decided, hey, let's take it to a comic shop and get the viewpoints of some people at a comic book store.
And what was the reception?
Surprisingly, it wasn't that bad. It was you can work on the artwork, you can do this. The story's pretty decent. Where'd you come up with the idea? And from that little idea, we got a couple of people that had their own ideas. Back then, it was a lot of different small independent companies that were looking for creators going on. And we had several of them come at us hey, can you create a, series? And if you do, we'll be, we would offer to pay you to do it. So when I first got, out of high school, my second year of high school, we got a deal, literally a deal across the board to do a pro-visual miniseries on one of my projects, which was called The Legacy.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy would, contract the whole 9 yards, and he wanted to do it, but it didn't work out because I wrote 6 of the issues and put them out there, ready to go, and the artist managed to do 2 pages total out of the whole series, out of the whole time we were working.
Oh, no. So, I mean, you had it going on, but you couldn't, these other guys just couldn't drag along with you, could they?
No. And it was such a, interesting point because at the time I was also, going at the end of high school, and I was crashing the college campuses, recruiting the artists and people to join my group. So I was like this high school kid, hanging out with these college, students, and they were artists and everything else, and I'm like trying to make my own little company, even at that age.
Right.
And it was like, okay, who is this kid? And what do you want here? So we did that, and we were trying to put it all together, but it always fell through because, the dedication factor, which you can understand, is very limited with people. If you're not really serious, this isn't the business to get into.
So I mean, what did you just let it go, or I mean, okay, so you do that in high school, and
right.
you don't have good illustrators. You go to college, the college campuses try to get you some illustrators.
Right.
How did that work out at all? Were you able to pull something together? Because I mean, you had, the potential for these contracts, which meant people could get paid.
Right.
Did anybody else catch on to that, or did they just not get it?
There were one or two individuals, but they didn't get it, and it was like most of the time people were like, oh, well, we want money now. It's like you got to finish the work. You got to at least put in an issue to get something done. And a lot of times, that went in one ear and out the other. It's like, oh, I can't put in that much work if I'm not getting paid for it. Most of the time people wanted to hang out instead of really be dedicated. And I was one of the guys that liked to get in there, like I said, and crash in the basement and let's get the work done. So it was very interesting. Like my friends fell through the wayside about doing it because nobody was really serious. Mm-hmm. And doing that and going to conventions, comic conventions in New York City, taking up the, the work and everything, and trying to get people to, recognize you and see that you're a real, writer isn't easy, especially for writers.
Yeah, and then, like you said, if you even though a lot of the creatives for that genre, started out pretty nerdy, it's still tough when you go ahead and you're trying to, strike out on your own, and people who are the same as you subject you to negative peer pressure in a way that you can't get anything done.
Yeah, exactly. It's really weird because, you get these names and everything else, because I used to walk around with books, not just the school books. I walk around and read the encyclopedia just to get, kind of facts about, different, societies, history. I'm a big historical buff. So, with my name of the Xmoor Studios, when people ask me what is what does Xmoor stand for, I said exceptional more. Mm-hmm. And most of the time, you get these people look at you sideways like, huh? Go pick up a book and find out what a more is, and then you'll get it.
Yeah, and then some, let's be honest, a lot of people don't take teenagers seriously.
Exactly.
It's easy for them to discount it because, the seriousness, because, first of all, they don't have to engage, and they don't have to pay attention. And then second of all, how people feel about teenagers. So,
right.
All right. So about when did you start to, cross that threshold where you were able to produce, you maybe put a team together or a couple people together, when did you start to be able to get, like your comic, your writing realized into comic form?
That was about 7 years ago. 8 years ago. Well, really about 10, because I started off, I remember I was working at Saks Fifth Avenue, and I was teamed up with another gentleman, and he had his own line of books and everything, but we were like collaborating to get each other pushed past it because, I had a kid and I was working 2 or 3 jobs, so it was like, life took, another direction at that time. So I had to wait in order to get my own work back in there. So we were both working on projects. He was working on his, I was working on mine. And that's when I started really recruiting, like, real artists from different conventions to come on and see if we could put something together. And, most of the time it was collaborative in the beginning because who has money like that? You're working, you got kids and everything else. So I tried to get people to come on and like, look, we can split it 50-50 or whatever, but that doesn't always work out. So, but I found one individual, and we collaborated on my first title, which is called Galtow. And he did such amazing illustrations on there that, you know, we really put it together. We kind of vibed and we bounced it across on each other. And meanwhile, I had other artists that were like, oh, I'll draw your book for you for free. But the problem was they couldn't draw.
Right.
It's like,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
And, you know, I used to get, you know, literally cursed out by individuals like, oh, well, you're just a writer. What are you doing? You'll never make it, you know. And you're African American, so you need to, you know, calm down and let us just draw your book for you.
Okay.
Okay. I see the emails and the letters, okay? I remember this. So it was really vicious circle. I'm like, really? He's like, yeah, you know, you're just a writer. Just sit back. We'll take care of the rest. And one guy had my character, like the Keelan character from my Galtow series. He had to look like a black pimp with a cane.
That's how he drew it?
Yes.
and obviously that wasn't your concept.
No. It was,
so he got you
samurai.
a black Mr. P. He got you a black Mr. Peanut.
Yes.
Oh
yeah.
Man.
With the hat.
Yeah.
Okay, with the feather coming off it.
Oh, stop.
I was like,
Did he have a cape, Robert?
No, that's the only thing he was missing.
Oh,
the cape.
Good. Okay. I mean, you know. So about 10 years ago, it kind of started gelling. And by the way, do you have is there any place online where we can kind of look at some of your earlier work, or do you not have that anywhere?
No, not really with the earlier work, like the black and white issues of Galtow. Yeah, you could find online.
Right.
You know, because those were the original. Everything came out in black and white.
Mm-hmm.
So I had that. Once it came out, when we started working on it, I tried to keep it at a certain level, and I would never work if I didn't like it. If it wasn't good, I wasn't about to show it to anybody. I used to haunt comic book shops with the pages in my hand and just, you know, put it up there or have somebody print it and put it up on the shelf just to see how people's reactions would be to the book.
Okay.
You know, and stand back and don't say a word.
That's kind of like, showing, you know, if you have a movie short, you run it in the video store and you kind of hang out all day while it's on loop.
Exactly.
And see if people kind of catch it, if they like it.
Right.
Yeah. So, well, what was the response? What did you see?
What I seen was, you know, of course you got the ones that's like, oh, it's class, it's not, you know, whatever. But the thing was that they also said, it looks kind of interesting. We got more, it really looks kind of interesting than we got, you know, negative responses for it. And, you know, the biggest thing we always tell people is, like, you got to listen. You know, don't just stand there and ask opinions. Listen to what people are saying, you know, and see what their reactions are going to be. I love just doing that and seeing. And from that, we would talk to the store owners, and then they would also go, well, this is pretty good. I would put it up on my shelf.
Right.
You know,
right.
So that was encouraging. And taking it to the comic shops was encouraging because people were like, wow, this is yours? You know, then all of a sudden they give you a different look, like, okay, it's not just, you know, your script, which nobody's going to read, you know. Or
you're not just some teenager, some high schooler who has a sketch pad and likes to draw your own stuff just for you, and it's kind of like, you know, hobby-esque rather than, you know, a serious artistic endeavor.
Exactly. And that's what you get from a lot of people that even now, you know, that they send us work, like they want to do work for Xmoor Studios, and it's like, oh, okay. You know, you don't want to discourage people, but then again, you don't want to encourage people that you know are not going to really be serious about it. You know, and we get those.
That's the tough thing. I mean, we've had other comic book artists, illustrators, what have you, that I've interviewed, and one of the things that they've said is when they got to meet, like the people in the Marvel world or the DC world who are actually, you know, doing really good work, that yes, a lot of those people were supportive, but obviously I'm interviewing people who have made the cut, who have excelled in ways that are notable. So I would, you always wonder, okay, so there is that person who comes in and has the barely, better than stick figures, all the people, I made a joke about this last week, all the hands only have 3 fingers and things like that. So I'm wondering, you're at the point now where you are the kind of person that people come to and say, hey, take a look at my stuff. Is it easy for you to critique? Is it hard for you to critique? And then when you do see some talent, what do you do to nurture it?
Well, in the beginning it wasn't. You're like looking and you're like, you don't want to flinch when you open it up.
Well, yeah, like, of course. Yeah.
But you make it to that point, but there's so many individuals that are doing, it's like American Idol in the shows, there's people that's really got talent, and there's people like, I hate to say it, nobody wants to tell you the truth. They don't want to crush your dreams or whatever, and that's not helping you. I always think of it as, if you're going to help somebody, you got to give them some reality in there. Like, tell them something. If it's not good, I usually say, like, well, maybe you need to take a class in, anatomy
tell
or whatever.
Why.
Mm-hmm.
You don't just put them down. You tell them why.
Exactly.
And I run into the same thing, excuse me, with I belong to a filmmaker network here in Chicago, and people will bring their movie shorts to show to the group, and some are not good.
Right.
But they still went, they got the cast together, they got a script, they did it, they obviously they have enough of a work ethic to have gotten something done. And if they've gotten that far, you do want to encourage them, and so what you're talking about for positive reinforcement, but with honest critique, that's kind of a tough line to walk. But I think that in the long run, it's going to do those kind of people the most amount of good, and that's what you're finding too, isn't it?
Exactly, and I love it when we get a lot of like the younger artists and creators coming to our table now. They like look for us. There's a group that comes there, and the guy literally comes and videotapes us at every show he can get to, and it's always about asking questions, how to get started, how to get your work, seen, what to do, what kind of discipline. And I always tell people, you got to be disciplined, and you got to do your homework. You got to if you're a writer, you got to do the research. You got to go study. You got to read the books. You got to, see things. Like I tell people, somebody asks, how is the best way to, get something creative going, like your projects and everything else. I go like, for instance, the best thing you do is get out the house.
Right.
Experience things that are not in your neighborhood or in your community. Because, I get tired of people writing about the hood.
Yeah.
We know what's going on in there, but I also know from my own perspective, there's all this other life out there, and you got to experience it in order to write about things that are not just, on your doorstep, because your doorstep isn't always the best thing you want to write about anyway.
Well, not only that, but, a lot of people are doing so many similar things.
Exactly.
And if you want to distinguish yourself, you've got to do something that is innovative and not the usual,
True. Very true. And that's one of the biggest things I want to do with people.
Yeah, for me, I write about middle class and upper middle class smart black folks because, first of all, they don't exist. Well, I mean, come on, look at, and I bring this up almost every other week, but look at all the bitching and moaning that went on because Bill Cosby dared to have a show where a black doctor and a black lawyer got married, and had a nice house and had kids who had what were traditionally white problems and not the problems that J.J. Walker had on Good Times, supposedly living in Cabrini Green. And the other thing that I encourage people to do is, just like you do, I say, you can't be a writer if you're not a reader.
Exactly.
And they go, well, I got all these stories from my neighborhood, my friends, my this, my that. I said, yes, but you have to express them in a way that is compelling for people to want to read them. And you can't do that. First of all, you can't write dialogue the way people talk. If you try to write dialogue the way you and your friends talk, people are going to sprain their eyes and their minds trying to read that. So you have to write in a way that sounds authentic, but speaks to the reader. It's got to be compelling. So yes, you have to know the fundamentals, and I think that you pushing those fundamentals and telling people, well, that's what you have to do. It's always for any genre, for any kind of art, for anything. You can't be a painter if all you know how to do is go steal some spray paint and go paint up a wall. That's not, to me, being an artist.
Exactly.
If you don't know color, if you don't know form, if you don't know function, how do you do that? Same thing for a comic book. You're actually in the crucible for a comic book, because if there's no story, there's no comic book. Okay, yes, the illustrations do catch my eyes, but the thing that keeps me coming back to the same, characters and stuff is a compelling storyline. So I do kind of relate to your frustration trying to get the B part of that, which is to illustrate the story, done. Now that you're in that you're kind of in a creative groove and you're able to do that, what are the hardest challenges in creativity for you at this point?
Oh, wow. As far as putting out projects or properties, or putting together storylines.
If you're going to put together a brand new storyline, let's say you're going to maybe over the next few months put together a creative universe, or let's go back to the last time you put together a creative universe. What was the part that challenged you the most in doing that?
Well, as we all know, as far as being a creative individual, there's no such thing as an original idea anymore. So it's like you're taking concepts and you're dealing with it in the sense of what can you put on it, what kind of spin can you put on the concept, in the sense to make it your own.
Yeah.
Right,
yeah.
Because, anybody that says, oh, nobody has this, come on, really? But you got to be able to, I always try to come up with a character first, and then I put the world around them and expand on it from there. And I don't know how I can put this. When I'm writing my characters, usually I can see them talking. So it's like, where am I taking them from that point? If I'm doing a fantasy, like I'm working on a project now where it's more like youth-oriented. So, you got to take it in the sense of how can you do something that's going to engage a younger mind, than what we're used to. So the whole peripheral concept is the hardest part. Once I got the basic concept down, forget about it. I can sit there and just throw it out there. And a lot of times I get people that come to me now and ask me, like, they'll have a concept, and they'll come at me and say, hey, can you do something with this? Can you help me out? And I can usually sit there and listen to what they got to say and adapt it and, and expand on it. Because that comes from the years and years of sitting around just creating concepts all the time.
Well, sure, you have exercised that creativity muscle in your head. Hang on a second. You're listening to the Genesis Science Fiction Radio Show, a service of the BlackScienceFictionSociety.com website. This is the August 9th, 2013 edition, and we're listening. Actually, our special guest is Robert Garrett of Xmoor fame, Xmoor. For those of you who are not in the chat room, you can check out his stuff at Xmoor Studios, Xmoor Studios.blogspot.com. Is that where Robert, is that probably the best place for people to start out taking a look at your stuff, or would you suggest they go to maybe Big Cartel or one of the other websites?
No, the Xmoor blog is probably the best way to go on and check it out, because we got links to everything else on there, so you can always expand and get across from there. We could seem to get more traffic from the European audience on there also. They come from there and then they start and break into the Facebook pages and everything else that go on.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about that. What kind of feedback are you getting from your audience?
When we get to people looking at it, they always come back and they really like the work. It's even better that when we do the comic conventions and we do the shows. It seems like, in the beginning we get the little standoffish kind of thing where it's like, oh, it's, black property or whatever. But now we get people that come back after that, or they'll write me and they go like, wow, I want to see the rest. You got any more? What is this? It's really good. We have people just that bought the book and they come back and they buy everything else that's on our tables when we have a show because they really like, which is cool with me, they really like the writing and the characters, and we usually pick the right individuals to be around to do the artwork. You know. That's very important, because, hey, who cares about a story, in the beginning? They want to see something that looks good. And if you can't come up with that, or the cover looks great, you open up the book and it's like, what the hell happened? That doesn't help any matter whatsoever. So we try to, make sure that we deal with the right, visual presentation before anything.
And then now you talk about going to these conventions. Do you do them nationally, or are you kind of mostly in the northeast portion of the country? How traveled are you, and which conventions have you gone to?
Well, this year we haven't went to as many because it's been hectic, and financing and putting together a film property and everything else is limited how much, traveling I've been doing. But usually we go from East Coast to the West Coast. You go to the San Diego Comic-Con, New York Comic-Con, EDBOC in Philly. We've been to Chicago. We try to travel to predominantly larger conventions and work our way to the smaller ones. But, finances being what they may, we can't make it to the small ones without justifying the cost behind it.
Right. Hey, do me a favor if you think about it, when you are going to go to one of these conventions, or when you're going to have any appearances, even in in the New York, I don't know if you go to New Jersey anymore, now that you're big stuff. But when you when you have an event that's coming up, if you would stop by the events calendar at BlackScienceFictionSociety.com, and post up where you're going to be, that way. If people are coming into a weekend and they go, oh, man, I got some disposable income, I got some time, I don't know what I want to do, that way I'm trying to make it a destination for people to take a look at what may be going on around the country. If I make any appearances anywhere, if I can get this ankle bracelet off and get out of my house, I'm going to go post my stuff up, too, so that people can come and see who is this crazy Japanegro who does this show. So, but seriously, in all seriousness, once you do start traveling again, people always want to try to connect with creatives that they've heard about, creatives that obviously that they're excited about their work. So if you can think about doing that, that would be really great. That would be a great favor to me, and also a great favor to our community.
Oh, definitely. We plan on doing much. Of course, the next show we are all set for is the New York Comic-Con coming up in October. That's coming up in October, and we have a big presentation coming up for that. So that's like the biggest thing right now. Everything else is in hiatus.
Yeah. Now, do you think someone mentioned C2E2, which is here in Chicago?
Right.
Have you've been to one of those, right? Or more than one?
I've been to several of those, yes.
Yeah. Next time you come, let me know ahead of time because I'd like to meet you for lunch. Seriously.
Oh, no problem. Definitely.
Yeah, I should, sometimes I can slip the bracelet off if I get it slippery enough and then, get it back on.
You're not supposed to announce that publicly.
Well, I don't care. They're going to have to catch me, See, you make the mistake of getting filmed at all of your appearances. Nobody really knows what I look like because I'm in the fitness protection program. Fitness protection, yeah. It's never mind. We'll talk about it later. When you go to these Comic-Cons, you bring your own product, you have your own displays, you get to meet the people. What kind of feedback do you get afterwards? Do you have people emailing you? Do you have people kind of checking you out, coming back and saying, I really liked what I saw? How does that help you, not from an ego point, but from a creative point? How does that help you or maybe even hinder you pushing forward and doing more creative? Is it very encouraging to you?
Well, it's a mixed bag sometimes. It all depends on the show. The show also, because there's times when you can go to the show and you'll sit there and then you'll swear nobody ever is going to come to your table. And meanwhile, the guy across from you that has zombie books has a mass of 50 people at all times, raiding his stock because they want to be born as a zombie.
Right.
You're sitting down there like, I got original product. Yeah, whatever. Sucks to be you. Anyway.
How encouraging.
But then we have the other ones that, they bring their kids over and,
right.
they're showing them, all of these properties and, it's excellent and it motivates you because, when you get that kind of thing, especially from your own people that come over and they look for you now,
right.
and they want to see the work, or they're just happy to see a brown face instead of, everybody else Wolverine and Batman all across the table. So it's really good. But we also have the ones that's like totally brainwashed. I'm not saying I still read comics, DC, Marvel, whatever. But sometimes you get the folks that won't even look in your direction, because you don't have Wolverine or Spider-Man or something like that over there. They'll walk right past you and go to the next table. And I'm talking about our own people. Okay. And they'll look at you and go like, and go right over there and buy that Batman poster.
Yeah,
that's kind of discouraging.
Not much you can do about that. And I have found that people's taste in comic books is even more persnickety than like somebody's taste in music or that sort of thing, because you see it. You see like they turn their nose up at you. Well, you ain't DC. You ain't
exactly.
So how do you go and do all of that? Behind that, there's no way really for you to make that connection unless they actually take a chance or they, and some of it could be financial. Maybe they only have so many dollars to expend on comic books, and they want to get the thing that they like.
Right.
But I would imagine, and I can't even imagine how do you get new readers? I mean, do you have a way, or do you have tricks of the trade where you try to get new readers or expose new people to what you have to offer?
Well, that's where we get into the promotion, and then promote again, and then go to bed and promote some more.
Right.
And you deal with that in the sense of how much you can get across. Like at last, one of the shows we had a model at the show. That's one of our characters. Okay. Then it was like, heads were like kind of kill each other and try to get over there to take a picture with the model.
Sure.
And then of course, hey, you got a book too? That was after the fact, but it also encouraged that, and you can still put pictures up there with the model. It's all word of mouth and trying to get people to, just look at it. You're not going to get everybody to buy it. Of course, you're not everybody's cup of tea, but sometimes it's just better sometimes, just to come over and take a look. It doesn't matter if you buy it or not, but just show, a little interest in it. Maybe you don't like it, but maybe your friend does. I've had women that come over, they don't like the Galtow because it's heavy on the action and everything else, but then they brought their boyfriend or their brother over there, and he would come over and buy the book.
Yeah, and I would imagine that, that's, I just thought of a good entree for you. You go, I understand you may not be into this, but do you have a boyfriend? Do you have a little brother?
Yeah.
Do you have a cousin?
Exactly.
And that, and even that, that's still hit or miss, but I would guess getting good market penetration is a problem that everybody faces, and it's just how creative you are in, in pulling that off that really makes all the difference in the world. Do you do any kind of, I would say, marketing beyond, not at the shows, but what do you do anything beyond online work? With the website, maybe some. Do you do social networking, by the way?
Oh yeah, definitely. I do social. I'm on Twitter. I'm on LinkedIn. I do a bunch of other sites. DeviantArt, everything. We're always doing it, but it's like, how many hands can you put across it? Because it's me and my business partner, and we work at Eric Nocella Diaz. We work it as much as we can and see what we can get across, but trying to keep up with everything and then do the writing and do, the publishing and then do the promotion. So you got the hats on. You're shifting hats as you're moving across the room. So, but it's pretty good because even on the different sites now, we seem to get a lot of people that follow and, want to see what we're up to. And like I said, on our blog site alone, we get a lot of people from all over Europe now that are always popping up on page, keeping up with what we're doing, which is a good sign,
Well, and then let's talk the mechanics of your business model. Would you say that, like many creatives, independent creatives, that the majority of your time is spent in the business of doing business and not so much in the creative part?
Exactly. Especially now, recently it's been much more, following up, trying to get deals, trying to network your way into the right, groups and the social media promotions, and, dealing with now, as we get into a more multimedia aspect of it, it's, trying to negotiate contracts and everything else without having, an agent or whatever. So I've gotten indoors now. I've learned how to get in the doors with, they go, how'd you get that person to say something? Or how'd you get in there? Because, you're not supposed to be able to get into those doors.
Right.
But you got to be able to go and finesse your way in, sometimes.
And your reputation is such now that a lot more doors are open than, when you talk about having really started this about 7 to 10 years ago, that's a pretty good uphill climb that you managed to make,
Yeah, it gets better and better. Now I can go to different shows and people go, hey, I know you, or, I've seen you here. Where have I seen you before? And, you can get a little more leeway or get somebody that wouldn't even acknowledge you years before to at least come over and, shake your hand now.
Right.
But it's still, for every person we do get that has the acknowledgement, there's like 10 other people like, what is this? Where did it come from?
Right.
We haven't even scratched the surface as far as, getting people to notice, Xmoor Studios. And that's where, the biggest issues are coming from, where, we've been approached by animation studios, film studios, and everything else. And the first thing, which I know is a big cop-out, but it's an easy way to get rid of, New Jacks, is to say, oh, you need to build up your audience base.
Well, sure. Yeah, first of all, they're so risk-averse.
Yes.
And I think the best indicator of how risk-averse, let's talk about film, is that they're digging up, all of these comic book characters because they know that at least the, what do they call it, the baby boomer generation grew up on, these Marvel characters, in the Avengers, and they're rebooting Superman and re-imaging Spider-Man and making an acknowledged mistake all the way around that was Green Lantern. But the fact of the matter is, come on, Ryan Reynolds is, he's no actor. He was great as Van Wilder. He should have stuck with that kind of stuff. But the fact of the matter is, to get, nobody spends money unless they think they're going to get a blockbuster. So how do you get a blockbuster with a 10-year-old comic? Well, you don't do it. It just doesn't work that way, and they're so impatient. Let's take a look at the series that you see on the SCIFI channel. If it doesn't catch on quick enough, they drop it like a bad habit. And since the finances are so important, it's a lot tougher for like a content creator like you to get to that point. And I'm wondering, a lot of content creators go their own way by creating their own webisodes and things like that, building up that critical mass, and then waiting for someone with some money to come and say, I would really like to get you wider distribution, So
Definitely.
I mean, yeah, what do you have, like a 5-year plan for that, or any plan like that for the future?
I've had a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan, and it's been an interesting journey because we've had production deals with some, I'm not going to name names, but some, mid-level promoters and producers in Hollywood. And,
right.
The thing is, I don't give up the rights to my properties.
Right.
And if I did, trust me, you would have saw a Galtow movie out by now. And
okay.
probably would have been the end of my career, but you would have saw the movie.
Right.
Okay. It's just that they're so busy, like you said, looking for the quick buck, the quick box office, that they're not even worried about the product and how it was put across, because if you were initially attracted to the concept, why are you trying to change it once you get your hands on it?
Right.
They're making it their own.
Yeah, for me, for novels, it's, and excuse me for using this crude analogy, but this is basically it. When you go with a publisher and they assign you an editor, the editor has to go pee in the corners to make it partly theirs.
Exactly.
And I would imagine for someone like you, having talked to those kind of people, it's very disheartening to find out that they really don't give a damn about you, and they don't give a damn about the product. They give a damn about making it theirs so that they can make the money. And
exactly.
We don't have the finances right now to do it. I mean, they talk about, we've got Spike Lee as a movie maker, we've got Tyler Perry as a movie maker, but the fact that you have to go, and sometimes Forrest Whitaker makes a movie, and sometimes Bill Duke, but the fact that you can count these people on one hand, and it's so easy to pull their names out of your hat, it's still tough out there for black content creators to get wide dissemination.
Oh, no, agreed. And to my whole point of, we were working with a animation studio, a computer game studio, all at the same time. And everybody was on point and ready to work on it. But as soon as, you put up any kind of, sign that say this isn't the way the project was, or this isn't the way the character is going to be, everybody starts to catch a hissy fit and start throwing out their, their titles and their clout. And
right.
To me, it's like, shouldn't it be about the creation and the property? I know that sounds crazy this day and age, but nobody wants, like you said, nobody wants to put the work in. They all want the easy, quick hit. And most of the time when you do that, you're not putting up the creativity and making it something that's going to last. You get a quick buck, but then everybody forgets about it.
Right.
And for me, I turned down a lot of that. Matter of fact, no names. Once again, we were signed to a mid-level comic book producer, and the guy was after me for like 5 years to put the Galtow property up on his line. And I finally said, we need the national publicity. It would have been up there. We would have did the whole thing. And so I signed with him, and then he disappears and gives me to the editor. And from the book that they bought that they were after for 5 years, he decides, I don't like your dialogue. You're going to have to change every single bit of your dialogue and narration before we'll put your book out. We own it.
Yeah, so what the hell did you buy? I never understood that. You're excited about XYZ. You spend the time and the energy to get to know the people who created XYZ. And then once you acquire the rights, or you're in pre-production for XYZ, all of a sudden we find out you really wanted LMNOP.
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't get it. And the problem is, oh man, the Bears are getting pounded by Kansas 10 to 20. All right, so it never made sense to me, and it's like, there's some bad words I could use, and I try not to use them, even though this is the internet. But they want to just crap all over it, and to be. I think it's more a case of them being able to say, "Well, I made this what it is."
Exactly.
And instead of being able to say, I really discovered something creative, and I managed to bring it to the forefront so people could take a look at it. And I just don't. I think about that. I'm 2 books down in a trilogy for As You Didn't Think Existed, an original storyline. Well, I'm serious. I mean, I'll just tell you real quick. My trilogy deals with what happens in America when they find out black folks have been secretly living on the backside of the moon since before Neil Armstrong got there. And the thing is, okay, if they come to me with a boatload of money and say, well, we would like to option this for a movie, the moment I accept that check, it's no longer mine. They can do whatever the hell they want to with it. And I have misgivings about that. I have to think about that because, you can stand on principle and they have to bury your ass in a plastic bag, or you could take the money and run and hope that something good comes from what happens. And I would imagine that's what you faced, wasn't it?
Oh, big time. And, it's like a chance to get some national media attention and
get your name out there,
right,
and all of that.
And the editor was just such a turnoff for me that he turned into my, as I call it, dog Rob, and I just basically made his life a living hell. and he basically, I was like, you need to not even bother talking to me. I need to talk to the owner of the company, and we'll figure it out from there.
Right.
And he was just in shock that I would even bother saying something like that to him, like, who the hell are you? And I basically got them to sign off on it because there was no way in hell I was rewriting it and changing it. We've had reviews. We've had people coming at us, telling us how much they love the book. They buy them all. And for somebody to come out of the blue and say, I don't like it, and you should just change everything because we own it. It's like, no. That's what you get nowadays.
Yeah, it's like having like a really cool classic car, and then all of a sudden somebody wants to put some stupid Cadillac fins on it.
Exactly.
That's something that people are going to have to listen to, because if you do have a great creative universe and you have characters that you're invested in, and you have something that you've given your whole heart to, and you go and you sell the rights to it to a studio, you have given it away. And that's something that people just don't know. They don't think about. Do you have, let's ask this, do you have any deals like that ahead of you where you're going to have better creative control and you think, you're going to get what you want? Or are you just going to step out on your own to broaden your brand?
I'm doing both.
Okay.
Because you cover yourself in the sense of, if one thing doesn't work out, maybe the other one. Because sooner or later, I'm not giving up my rights to anything. But you got to work with individuals. And I'm still going to maintain a certain amount of control on anything I do, even if it never goes anywhere. If that's the case, then that's the case. But as far as the production and working with the group, the Rubik's House, and putting together our short film property, that's like I'm the producer on it along with several other individuals. I'm the writer, creator, and we're expanding it from there. So that's in my own hands, even though I'm working with, individuals. I can basically control everything on that issue. As far as working with other individuals that are already established, we have a couple of people we're talking to. And we'll see where it goes, but I'm so jaded with a lot of that, that start and stop. And then they want you to build up your audience even more. And it's like, as far as being an independent producer, creator, and everything else, there's only so far you're going to get without somebody, helping out or tossing out or saying, putting your name out there in front of individuals. Sometimes you need somebody to put a foot in the door in order to let you come in for a while. I'm not saying get a deal or anything else. I'm just saying let me sit in that room, and I guarantee you I can move it to the next step.
Sure.
But it's the point of trying to get to that level. And I think right now the way we're working it with the film production is a good way where we're getting people now contacting us that never would have before.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's like, oh, wait a minute, you're doing film. You stepped out of the comic genre. You're not just an independent, creator anymore.
Right. Someone earlier before the show started mentioned that you had done something with BET. You want to describe what you did? Was it a project or?
Oh, the BET was a year ago. They had they were picking the top 10 graphic creators and producers of work, and they voted on who were the top 10 people that were out there at this point in time. And I made it onto the list as one of the top 10 graphic creators, even though I'm a writer, but they were impressed enough with the creative properties that they listed me on there.
Man,
which was
that's
pretty cool. Yeah. And, some people were like, he's not an artist. What's he doing on that list?
Well, I one of my positions is if that only we could have created the term haters,
Yeah.
So you get on the list. Well, I'm just being honest, man. I mean, I've been through all of this stuff, and I've watched how people behave, and there are times when I am ashamed that black talent sometimes doesn't feel that they're lauded enough unless they can look down at people they've either passed by or people who can't reach that level. And it's a damn shame, because it's not like there's room for everybody, I think. You got
exactly. It's a huge market, and it's we've only even scratched the niche on it. So it's not like we all got to fight for something for one spot, and that's one of the things I see you get a lot of, nobody wants to, not nobody, but a lot of people don't want to help out or, open up a door because they're afraid there's no room in there, for more than one or two black individuals to stand up there and put their work out. And it's amazing, the collaboration factor is very weird as far as, African-American creators go. So that I hate to say we're in that everybody wants to be the man instead of everybody working together.
Well, that is true. I mean, when you look at a lot of black businesses, let's talk about black advertising. One of the things that big deal 2 weeks ago, what was it? Omnicom merged with Publicis in France to create the largest advertising agency in the world. But when you look at all of these small black advertising agencies, none of them will merge. None of them will help focus, some market power together, because they're all lifestyle agencies. And by lifestyle agencies, what I mean by that is the people at the top have the agency to support their lifestyle. Nobody wants to be number two. Everybody wants to be number one. And then when you merge, then all of a sudden you have to not only share credit, but you also might have to do a little more work instead of making everybody else do it. And I think that paradigm trickles down into a lot of things that we do, and it's not survival oriented. Let's put it that way. It keeps everybody in their own little niche, and they're all scared to step out, to join forces, to do things together. Are you managing to put together like an effective team to move your creativity forward, or are you pretty much by yourself?
No, me and my partner, Eric Nocella, working hard, but we have a core group of people that we always work with and deal, and promote and shift up, attention to. When we're not doing something, they're doing something. It's like Regine Sawyer from Lock It Down Publications. She's one of my favorite people to work with. And Stephen Harris, who I collaborate on with the book of Jala. You know, we deal with him. We do shows, or every time we do a show, it's usually with and Stephen Harris and Regine Sawyer. And also back and forth do a little work with Gray Williamson, who did Milestone Books and everything. Phenomenal creator, so I've been doing work off and on with him. And then we have a stable of artists that, I use continuously because I can rely on them no matter what. Most of them are out of the country, but if I make a call or whatever, they're there. They're ready to do the work. And that's another big thing with individuals, as far as trying to get something out there. A lot of guys are so busy trying to charge you rent money instead of trying to get the work done, because you've got to start, showing what you could do. Big deal, you got to check, but the point is, are you really working on anything, or are you just, trying to get paid off of, somebody's back that's out there the same way you are, whereas you both can rise up and really show people, that you're serious.
Right.
It's not always about getting, paid all the time. And that's one of the things I try to tell, the younger artists. Sometimes you got to make a sacrifice, you know. Yeah, you go, oh, well, you're just a writer. I got to do the drawing and everything else. But, without a story, you don't have anything to draw.
Right.
So it works both ways.
Yeah.
Collaboration is very important.
Yeah. You're listening to the Genesis Science Fiction Radio Show, a service of the BlackScienceFictionSociety.com website. This is the August 9th, 2013 edition, and we're talking to Robert Garrett of Xmoor, Xmoor fame. For those of you who are in the chat room, we've popped up the links. For those of you who want to take a look at some of his work, best place to go right now is Xmoor Studios, Xmoor Studios.blogspot.com, excuse me, and learn a little bit more about Robert. So I'm taking it you like New York, you like hanging out there, it is your home. Have you thought about maybe relocating? Do you think that, and the reason why I ask that is, what if you do manage to get that kind of success for movies or animation or what have you? Are you going to be one of these bi-coastal guys who's got a place in New York and a place in L.A. In order to feed the beast?
I don't think that's necessary. I just think, you should be able to, I'd like to stay in New York at all times, maybe have some, get to a point where you have a place to escape sometimes,
sure.
A little summer home. But as far as L.A., I'm not, hyped up about
I personally, I tell people both in film and in writing, groups here that L.A. is where you go for your dreams to die. Now, of course, somebody's going to be listening to the show who lives out in L.A. and they're going to get mad at me. But one of the realities is, you have less than 1% of the people in L.A. who are working in the movie industry are employed full time. It's it's not the way it was in the heyday of maybe the 20s, 30s, 40s. And to what you said, and to what I think most of us have come to realize, a lot of the creativity has been squeezed out of the industry. They're only going, with the sure thing. I mean, think about that. Who in their right mind would have thought, oh yeah, Dukes of Hazzard, that's going to make a brilliant movie and make a whole lot of cash, or the A-Team or stuff like that. They're bringing back television shows, and yet there is such a huge amount of creative talent in this country, black, white, whatever, and we don't get to see it, and that's the damn shame. So what you've managed to do by breaking out to where you got both, an American audience and you have an international audience, is it speaks well of not only your content but the way you were able to market. Do you have any advice for people who also maybe wanting to follow in your footsteps, in content creation?
Wow. My whole thing with that is write and know what you're writing about, And also do something that people want to buy. Don't write for yourself. You know, a lot of times we get, you know, the books that's like, well, you like what you're writing, but if somebody else is looking at it, they're like, you know, it's still a business no matter what. And you got to think of it as that and do your research on it. Like pick up the trades, pick up, you know, not just comic books or whatever. See what's out there. See what's selling. Don't just, you know, model yourself after that. That's another thing I don't like. Every time, you know, whatever's hot, vampires, you know, zombies or whatever, everybody got a book now. You know, they're jumping on it. You know, do something different but exciting. You know, and in order to, you know, I guess to break that wall, you got to come up with, you know, things where you could test the market, test it and see what you got before you just jump and go all in on it. You know, do a little, you know, convention run. Do, like I said, go to the shops and see what they got to say about it, you know, and put it up there.
And talk to your audience. You know, find out what people like. You know, because let's see, the name escapes me. Last week, the gentleman I interviewed last week said his kids come to him and say, you know, this is good, but it would be better if X or better if Y. You know, and I'm a firm believer in listening to your audience because, you know, after all, it is a business, and in order to sell what you want to sell, you have to feed the audience. Otherwise, you know, like you said, you're writing for yourself. And if you're going to do that, just make yourself the greatest diary in the world, you know?
Exactly, because you'll be the only one in there sitting with a pack of books in your hand thinking about, wow, I'm good. And nobody else is worried about that. And since the market is flooded and it's so easy to print your own books nowadays and do the promotion, you've got to go through that, and, you know, people stereotype us as it is. And if they see the same old, you know, books with bad writing or bad artwork or whatever, they start to label it. And there's a lot of times where people just get tired of it. It's like the same, you know, Marvel and DC books done 4 different ways. Yeah. You know, but they're Marvel and DC, so they're still going to get the sales. You're not Marvel and DC, you know.
Hey, do you do any community outreach? I mean, do you visit schools? I mean, anything like that yet, or are you not quite at that point where you've got the luxury of being able to do so?
I'm not at that point yet, but I am getting a lot of different, you know, professionals asking me if I'm going to start doing it. I guess, you know, they like the work or whatever, so I'm getting invitations to start up on it. So I'm looking towards doing some community outreach work, you know, probably towards the end of the year once we get everything, you know, moving in one direction. But I think it's a good idea, you know, because I see so many of the, like I said, the young kids and everything else, they're looking for people that are doing it, not just talking it, but are doing things so they can use that as an example. So
plus, your story is inspiring. I mean, you could tell them, this is what I did. I did exactly what you were doing, and I made sure that my stories were good, and I got somebody who knew how to draw, and now look where I am. And that's probably more encouraging than most anything else that you can do, because you're a concrete example to them for what can happen.
Yeah, well, definitely. I'll be out there look forward to it, because I know my one of my partners, and Stephen Harris, does a lot of different, you know, works and everything else. So we'll see how it all develops and put it out there, because, like I said, there's so many different venues that can be, you know, looked into, but people need to know that they can't stick themselves into one hole or do what everybody else is doing. You got to be innovative. You just can't be sitting there and wondering. It's like the music these days. There's no innovation. It's just the same type thing because the radio stations won't play it. It's just like comics. A lot of times you're not going to get the notoriety because, you know, everybody's into that, oh, my boy is doing something, but it shouldn't be about that. It should be about, is it good? Would you read it? Would you buy it if it wasn't your friend? You know, that's one of the things I see a lot of.
Yeah, would you get it for your kids?
Exactly. You know? Exactly. Yeah, now we're doing, like, we have a all-age book with Jala concept, and that's getting somewhere where we can, a lot of, like, schools that are asking if we're going to do, a trade book or anything with it because it's about a, young black girl in Harlem. So it's like, I had, was it 2 weeks ago at the Bronx Heroes Con, the woman came over. She had went through the tables and she finally got over to where we were at. And she was annoyed. She goes like, now, if I would have known this was here, we just would have got all of this stuff instead of dealing with everything else out there. And she pulled her daughter literally over there to come over to take a look at it. And the little girl's eyes were like, wow. She goes like, oh, can I get this, that, and that? And it makes you feel good to see it because, yeah, you got Wonder Woman, you got everything else going on there, but how many little black girls you see in comics at this, day and age? That's positive, not running around acting like, whatever.
Well, and it's got to also be, it's inspiring for you because what it is, again, it's direct validation from your audience.
Exactly. So we're trying to do things like that, and it's just interesting to see the development now from comics to trying to do the film properties and working on, my first live-action film short with a director and everything. So it's like a learning experience because I've always wanted to be in film. So now it's like, wow, I got my own film short. What's next? Can I get a film out of it? So that's the biggest thing, the next jump.
Where do you think you're going to be maybe 10 years from now?
Where do I think I'm going to be? Directing my own film.
Where do you seriously you think you're going to be at that point?
Yes.
And are you going to be? Is it going to be like a continuation of your creative universe, or do you see yourself branching out and doing a lot more stories, not of the same nature right now?
No, definitely different stories. I grew up loving film. So my biggest thing was I used to sit and watch the Spike Lee films, and then I'm into the Woody Allen films because I always tell people that's the funniest thing when they go, well, I want to work on my writing and my dialogue and everything else. And I go, well, if you're going to work on dialogue, you need to study Woody Allen films. And they look at you like, what are you talking about? And even Spike Lee from way back used to say, if you want to know how to write realistic dialogue, you used to study Woody Allen films because his dialogue is so on point. And you're looking at it, it doesn't mean because he doesn't have any black people in his films, but besides that, how to write and direct and get these storylines going. So I want to do things like, where's our Indiana Jones? Where's our Star Wars? Where's our psychological thrillers? Besides the hood movies, the ghetto comedies, and, the stereotypical films that we always see. I want to see different kinds of films come out from us. Mm-hmm. Like I just saw a trailer for this movie about, the military guys going to Germany trying to save artifacts, from the Germans who were destroying everything. I'm like, why can't we do anything like that? But we also need people that are going to go see different kinds of movies like that with us in it, where we're not just, on the corner or whatever.
Yeah, and you talk about black movies and black movie makers now. A lot of people criticize Tyler Perry for going after the low-hanging fruit. And we all know that Spike Lee can't get white people money to make his movies yet. Certainly not. I mean, I don't see anybody giving Spike Lee $100 million to do a movie. There are still difficulties in being able to produce some of the kinds of content that we want to do because, first of all, it's not exactly mainstream. Red Tails had to be self-financed because no big Hollywood studio wanted to pay for it. I doubt that something like Roots could be made today. It's tough. Money's tight, and again, if they're not confident that they're going to get blockbuster returns, on their on their investment for film, it's tough to get financed at all. And let's be honest, getting that kind of financing from wealthy black entertainers doesn't seem to be an easy road to go down. In terms of you getting your projects put together, what kinds of things are you looking at in order to get enough money to finance like your first full feature film? Have you thought about, how you're going to fund it?
Well, that, in a sense, is what we're dealing with right now with the film we just released, a short film, the Inheritors short film we just released on YouTube. Now, we put it together with Rubik's House, and Chitty Ozve is the director, and we really think it's like really a good, film short. And our goal now is to get more people involved to take a look at it and see if we can get it into a distribution house or whatever, where we can do a full-length film or a television short, do television series based on the concept. And one of the biggest things at this point is getting people to acknowledge that, one, they've seen it, and good or bad, if you liked it or whatever, leave a comment on there where we have it up on YouTube. And like right now, we're over 900 views in less than 2 weeks.
That's
but
pretty
yet
cool.
You can't get people to click a like button. Okay, it's like, we went into a film festival competition, which is going to be for the in October, and we're on there. And I put up there, I'm doing an event on there about, go on, if you like it, click like. Do it. We invited thousands of people. So far, we have 40 people that clicked the button.
But see, that's the thing. The hardest part, everybody says, oh, the Internet's ubiquitous. Everybody has access to it. But getting someone's eyes on your stuff is still just as hard as it always was.
Exactly.
You have this Korean guy named Psy, and he does this stupid this video, and all of a sudden everybody goes crazy, and you say to yourself, oh my God, look at all the money he made off of that, but it's still hit or miss,
Exactly.
And it is tough getting eyes on a page. They've done studies where they see that the average Internet, the person who spends maybe an hour or so on their computer online a day, they decide subconsciously whether they're going to stay on a page or not in 3/5 of a second. Well, that's kind of tough if you're trying to put some new kind of content out or sell something new or bring a new paradigm to comic entertainment or something like that. That's a very short amount of time to try to capture somebody's interest, because people are they click. So it's going to it's going to take a while for you to reach what you would consider critical mass. I've had movies and trailers out there, and I don't think I'm anywhere near as successful as you at getting people to see them. But I'm trying not to be daunted by that because it is hard. There's nothing easy about this.
Oh no! I always tell people when they ask any information about it, it's like, if you don't got a strong stomach and if you're not being focused and you're not jumping on it, this is not for the weak of heart, because you can get discouraged so easily. But if that's the case, then I don't think you should start if you're going to get discouraged, because people, can be fickle. I've had friends, close friends, that they come after me after the fact. They done seen the video, they went through it, and they see me and they go, wow, that was really good. Man, you guys are really killing it. I go, did you click the like button? You needed me to do that?
Yeah, it's tough, man. It really is, because people will look at your stuff and they'll really like it and they'll forget, or they don't realize how important that may be to marketing.
Oh, big time. That's why I always explain to people, because that's what they look at. They don't care if you did it or whatever. They want to know if people are paying attention and what's their reaction to it. And if they're not seeing that people are noticing your work or whatever, oh, forget about it. They just look at you and keep moving in the other direction.
Yeah, yeah, and then they get to go to another page in that next 3/5 of a second, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. Let's go back to when you were, you know, in kind of your teenage years in the early 20s. Who were some of the people who you admired? Who were some of the people who kind of inspired you to not only get into where you are now, but kind of to do the push to stick with it this long?
Oh, my stepfather, for one, because he was the one that encouraged me to, you know, get all involved in history and reading and everything else. He wasn't a smart man or whatever, you know, straight from the streets, in the hood, in the projects, but he always encouraged me to pick up a book and read. And, you know, that got me in trouble half and half because, you know, I'm walking around with the encyclopedia in my hand and in the project. So, you know, nicknames abound, but hey, I stuck with it. And then, you know, after reading through books and checking out and seeing encouraging, like, you know, writers, different various writers. I'm a huge Akira Kurosawa fan. So it's like, you know, looking at that, I always wanted to do the Seven Samurai in my own version.
Right.
But also, you know, it's going to the shows. And one of the people that really set me on the right path was Louise Simonson.
Right.
From Marvel Comics. Because I always used to go to the shows in the city, and she would be there. And I was trying to push my scripts, everything else, like, hey, I don't care if you look at it now. Could you just, like, give me an idea on what it is to be a writer, whatever, and take a look at it, you know, if you get the chance. Most of the time, it was like, no, get away from me. You're bothering me or whatever. Or
beat it, kid.
Yeah, beat it, kid. Louise took the time and looked through it and told me, okay, first off, we know you can write.
Right.
Second off, write down. Okay, she goes like, you're writing over people's heads. Take it down a notch. Do the work. And she goes like, but you will be a writer, and you're going to get somewhere in this business one way or the other. You know, and I really, really, really keep that to heart because nobody else was taking the time. And somebody else that's still working in the business, basically I went over to him right after that, and he looked at me and goes, I'm not looking at your stuff. According to Louise, you're competition.
Yeah, well, you know, we talked about that. You know, that whole hater thing, or you know.
Yeah. But it was like, wow, okay, keep it moving. But you know, things like that, and being inspired by, you know, the real filmmakers, as I call them. You know, the classic filmmakers, and looking at the way Christopher Nolan does his, you know, his writing and everything, you know, motivates me. I like to be around people that are doing things, you know, and always hustling and keeping it going. And I always tell people, if you're going to do get into the work, surround yourself by positive, motivated individuals, not people that just talk, and they keep saying, no, next year I'm coming out. Next year I'm going to have a book. And then that year you see, well, the following year I'm going to come out with something. And they never get anything done, or they have one book and it's been like 3 years, and you're still holding on to that one book. You know, that doesn't, you know, you're not going to be motivated by these individuals.
Well, sure.
You know?
Of course not.
And you want to feel competitive. It's still, no matter what, a competitive feel. And you want to look over and say, wow, that's pretty good. I got to see if I could do that or be better than that, because, you know, you want people to push you. Because if you're going to stay the same, you're never going to get anywhere, or you're not going to get better. So, you know, I like to be around, like, people that are focused and aggressive.
Right. And that you know, surrounding yourself with the right kind of individuals, I think, is a huge lift up. You know, I was speaking to somebody on the site today, Penelope Flynn. I was talking to her on the phone, and you know, she was so encouraging about what I was doing and the books that I did, the story that I wrote, that it pushed me to do things a little bit quicker, and it pushed me to do them a little bit better. And knowing you have people out there who appreciate what you do makes a huge difference. You know, I mean, I can imagine. I mean, people know more about you than you know. Obviously, you look at where you are today. You think, oh, well, it's not where I would like it to be. But then stop and think about it. Look at where you were 7 years ago compared to where you are now in terms of notoriety, in terms of being acknowledged in your genre and respected. So, you know, even though most creatives are never sitting there going, oh, I'm content, I am exactly where I want to be. If you see the progress made, I think that's got to be pretty compelling and very encouraging.
Definitely. Because you always look back and you go, wow, I remember like a year ago I couldn't even get any acknowledgement. Now it's like just on like the social sites and all the other different sites, you get people that contact you and they're like, wow, I really like your work. Or, yeah, I've seen your work before. You see them at a show, and they're like, hey, I've seen your work. You do pretty good work. And it's like it puts a smile on your face because, nobody's going to say and be really honest and talk about, oh, I don't care about that. Come on, really? Everybody wants to be appreciated for your creative ability, or any ability that you have. And to say you don't look for it, is a lie. You know, so you want to hear that, and you want to keep advancing. And it just makes it more important to keep going and see what else you could do. Because if we've gotten to this level at this stage, hopefully we can keep it moving and do this, because I would love to see like a black, Paramount film or Warner Brothers or something like that, where, we have a stable of creators doing their things and doing different properties. Nobody's just lined up doing one concept. There's no big time honcho telling you got to do this and that, and we can green light it, because I see so many powerful people, but it's like, wow, not yet have we gotten to that level where we can green light our own properties or, keep it in that sense. And I just think it's time, really.
Yeah, and especially now when people are getting they have a lot of stimulation on the internet, but in terms of television, in terms of movies, it seems like both those markets are contracting. Hang on a second. You're listening to the Genesis Science Fiction Radio Show, a service of the BlackScienceFictionSociety.com website. This is the August 9th, 2013 edition, and I'm telling you, we're just really breaking it down with Robert Garrett of Xmoor Studios fame, and that's Xmoor. For those of you who are listening to this as a podcast and aren't looking at our chat room or anything, if you would like to see a little bit more about Robert Garrett's work, he's at Xmoor Studios, all one word, XMOORSTUDIOS.blogspot.com. Also visit BlackScienceFictionSociety.com. Look him up there. There are things that links that you can go to there. He's got a short out on YouTube, and here's what I want to ask you. I went and clicked on one of your links here for Chase Book. Is that you?
For Chase Books?
I was given a link, chasebook.com, Inheritors, the comic book, and the movie.
Right,
okay?
He did a review on
and he, this is considered an over 18 site, but he wrote you up pretty nicely there, and seems to think that you've got room for a lot more story and things like that. So obviously, the way you've been writing and the way you've been creating, you're not painting yourself into any corners, and it looks like you have a lot of room to grow and a lot of subplots that you can toss in there, as you go down the road. Do you see the Inheritors as a project that's got some long-term legs? Is that what you're hoping for?
Oh yeah, definitely. There's so much more to the storyline than what is on one on the film short and two in the comics. We've put it down there, and I've expanded on it. I had the storyline all written out, so it's much huger story than people think it is. So there's a potential for it to be a film, but it's even more of a potential for it to be an ongoing show. That's the way I try to write things like that, where it's multimedia aspect. It's not just a comic book.
Right, and so you're looking at kind of almost like an old-style serial where you can just keep going and going and going and branching the story out further and further and further.
Exactly, and that's the way I try to take all of the concepts. Like my concept Galtow is like so expansive, where you could deal with so many characters, and you can inject it into there. And the whole Ajala thing deals with historical facts in Harlem and different, generations of this family that were involved in the society, and you can just jump from one point to the next as far as the heritage in the story and how the different characters related and don't relate to each other after becoming involved in a society. So I wanted to always do something where it's not just a basic story. It's always open-ended where you can go in different directions. If we want to do film, we want to do animation, we want to do, any kind of thing, and just take it and run with it.
Sure.
And that's what I think is, basic creative writing, in a sense where you don't pigeonhole yourself and make it a dead story. And, okay, you told the story at the beginning, and then you're out. I always like an open-ended kind of thing.
Well, I mean, it gives you the maximum amount of flexibility, and it allows you to really branch out with your creativity. You could come up with some pretty wild things that you don't know how to get out of, and that could be the fun thing, the fun creative part for you, so that you're keeping your own characters, your own universe, your own creative universe kind of new and exciting for you, because you don't want to ever get to the point where you've stagnated yourself or you're bored with your own creations. Exactly.
And that's why I did a fantasy novel that break out of the comic and the film thing. Like I said, I've grown up with the whole fantasy thing, and I read them like crazy. That's all I read now is like the fantasy books and like different historical information. But my thing is fantasy, and sooner or later I will get down to write a full trilogy fantasy story, which I'm dying to do. But right now it's not feasible for me to get into it. But I did my first novella. I released that last year. So I'm going to be taking it off from there and do the next one as a full book. But that probably won't be until, some of this kind of hustle and bustle goes down.
Well, and that kind of begs the question, after BET awarded you as a really outstanding creator, a creative talent, did you get what kind of traction did you get out of that?
A lot of companies, like I said, I can tell you stories. A lot of companies that'll contact you, and most of the time it's individuals contacting me for a job. Okay, like, no, we're not at that stage where we're, capable of hiring and getting a staff going. But there was a lot of, creative companies, but most of the time they wanted you to work on their stuff, and get it in. But my point also is I don't mind working on other people's properties, but most of the time it was like that, if you get it done, then we'll give you a percentage, or, you could be down with that. But I have my own properties, and, I can't, right now it's not feasible for me to be working on other people's things for a percentage. If you're a friend or something like that, I'll help you out and flesh out the, idea. But,
well, a lot of people want to, to parasitically leech off of your talent, try to get some money going out of your helping them. And then, you have to be thinking in the back of your head, well, gee, once they're real successful, am I going to get kicked to the curb or not?
Exactly. And then there's the ones that barely have an idea, and then they want you to flesh it out. I've been through that one before, where they want you to totally flesh it out. They have this thumbnail little concept, and then you sit there and you put all the work in, and then they're like, oh, thanks. and you're like, huh? Excuse me?
Yeah. I have a lot of people come up to me and go, I always wanted to do a book about my life. And I go, well, what makes you think that your life was so compelling that it would be interesting enough for a book? Because you're boring the hell out of me right now. So, and I try to be positive, but one of the things I've met so many people, and I know this, you're in a different kind of, your structure is different, but I've met so many people who have started to write a book. They say, oh, yeah, I'm in the middle of writing a book. And I go, well, how long have you been writing it? Well, like 71 years. And I go, really? What's stopping you from finishing it? Well, it's not that it's something stopping me from finishing it, but I can't, I need to be in the right mood to write. And I'm going, well, then you're never going to finish it.
Exactly.
Because writing is work. It's a job. You're trying to write something to get it published, to get notoriety second, but to get paid first. And a lot of people don't realize that it's a job. You've already reached that threshold. You've overcome it. You know that you have to do the work. And then you're at the point where, as a black creative, you know that the business of doing business is what sucks the life out of you and just takes your time. And they don't realize that. So they're going to be sitting there talking about, yeah, I'm in the middle of writing a book for a long, long time, because they're never going to finish it because they don't understand the ethic of it.
Exactly.
And you're obviously, you are to be admired for being able to put all these irons in the fire, and not only put the irons in the fire, but actually draw them out made and whole. It's a tough thing. Otherwise, everybody would be writing a book or writing a comic book or drawing a picture or creating the next hit on the radio. So I don't know how to convey that to anybody else. And I mean, when people ask you, well, how do I get to be as good as you? How do I get my comic out there? Are you straight enough with them to tell them that it's kind of like how you get to Carnegie Hall, practice. Do you feel that it's kind of like your role to help mentor them, but to be honest with them, to tell them exactly what kind of work they're in for?
Oh, definitely, especially the younger ones. Like some of the older ones, I hate to say, some of them lose the focus, and they think that they don't need advice. They just want you to give them a hookup, and get them going. And it's like, I just need you to publish my book for me.
Yeah.
What? I can't do that. I'm not going to, lie to you and say, oh, yeah, we get those younger ones that go like, oh, I got my group together, I got my team, we ready, you can publish the book, and we'll come out and we'll get this done. And I'm like, slow down. First off, what do you got? How are you putting it together? They don't, most of the time they have some pictures. They don't have anything going on. I'm like, have you got your characters down? Have you promoted? You can do this on your own. I try to encourage them to do it on their own.
Right.
And put it out there. And also with all of these social sites, and you got conceptart.org, DeviantArt, you have all these things. Test your ground. Throw it out there and see what happens. If you get people liking your work or whatever, that shows you got something that people are going to want in the long term.
Mm-hmm.
If you put it out there and you're hearing crickets, it's time to evaluate what you're doing.
Yeah.
Don't just go out there and tell somebody that's already doing something that, hey, you going to publish my work for me?
Yeah.
So I try to tell them study, focus, and know the business. Most of them just figure, oh, I want to be a writer. Do you know anything about it? No.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to do my life story. Can you help me write it? Well, it's your life. I don't even know you. And sitting here, I don't even like you. Why would I do that? So, yeah, I probably have some social skills I could brush up on. But you know what? When I kind of told this story, but when I started writing my first book, I actually treated it like a part-time job. Every night at 10 p.m., I stopped whatever I was doing, got on the computer and wrote or edited till 2 in the morning. Well, that's a part-time job. 4 hours a day, every day I was working, and that's how I finished a book. And I did 750 pages in 9 months. If somebody comes to me and tells me they've been writing a book for 10 years, I don't know how to respond to that. And I like you said, telling the kids, slow down, you have to do some fundamentals first is probably a better way to approach it. But one of the things I tell people is, you have to have a story. I mean, how many times have we all read a book or gone to a movie and the ending was so bad we're sitting there going, damn, not only was I screwed out of $50 for the two of us, but I will never get those 2 hours or that week and a half back that I spent watching this movie or reading this book. There's an honest obligation that you have to take on as a content creator, because if you want people to give you money for what you have, it should be worthy. It should be worthy of their money. Not everybody's got a lot of disposable income. Like the mother and daughter who by the time they got to your table, they went, oh, man, I bought all this other crap and I could have gotten the good stuff,
Exactly. It's a difference in attitude also. It's just like anything else. Some people you could tell and you can give advice to. Other ones, it doesn't matter what you say. They automatically assume they're going to be able to do it and probably do it better than you anyway.
Yeah.
So, sometimes you just got to nod your head and go like, okay, been there, done that. Because if you really want to improve, you're going to listen. Like, everybody still listens. I love going over to some of the big pros and, picking their brain and seeing what they got to say, because you can always get better. And that's one of the things people don't understand. They figure they've made it, even though they don't even have anything. But they figured, hey, I got half a book, so I'm already ready to conquer the world. And it's like, where's the rest of it? What are you doing? Are you promoting it? And then you get your friends and family hyping it up instead of, telling you, hey, it's been a year. You're going to do more? Nobody does that. They all pat you on your back for mediocrity.
Yeah. I actually have a personal question for you. How did you find your collaborative partner? How did you find your illustrator, your artist?
Well, first, my artist, I went on the internet. And early back then, it was just like I put the ad out, and after going through hundreds of different artists, this guy popped out. And it was like, I was looking for collaborative at the time because there was no way I was affording doing the different artists. And we made a deal. I would help him with his story, and he would do my my illustrations. So it worked out pretty well. I helped him out with his concept, and we definitely went for that. But he really did a killer job on the artwork, and that's how I wind up meeting my business partner. We were at a show in Manhattan, and he literally just came up to the table and said, all this junk in here is garbage. I love what you got there. I was getting ready to leave the show. And, you hear it from people, and you're like, yeah, whatever. He goes like, I want to be your business partner. I want to do a bust of your character, and I'll pay for everything. And you hear that, and you're like, okay.
Sure, okay, whatever, yeah.
That. And lo and behold, we have a bust. He did 200 sculptured statues of my character, Keelan Jakes. Got him made in Japan, did everything on it. And it finds out he's like a, major sculptor in the field.
Sure.
So it was like, wow, okay. So we've been partners ever since then for like 7 years, working on everything. So he helps me out with the artist because he's also an artist. So he gets to deal with them. I usually find them, and then I turn them over to him. Eric just takes them over, and, I'm rough on people as far as keeping the quality and the look of the book. He's rough on them as far as getting the specifics, the background, the perspective, and everything else going on. So it's like a tag team, He's the nicer guy, Everybody goes, yeah, but in the proof, he's the one that really puts people in check. and getting it going. So I think we make a great team, you know, because we push each other.
And you're lucky that way because, a lot I've talked to some very successful teams where some of the team members haven't even met face to face. The internet gives us range, scope, and the ability to contact and find people who obviously we would never have found any other way. You were lucky that you ran into people face to face, and it obviously is working for you.
Yeah, definitely, but it's so hard. Please, I've gotten threats from individuals over in Europe. One guy said he was going, because I didn't approve him for a job, he was going to come from Europe and meet me at a convention and work me over. And I'm like, what?
Was he German?
No, he was Spaniard.
Oh, well, damn, yeah. Every time somebody talks about a Spaniard, I think about Princess Bride. Hi, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die. Well, that's pretty cool. I mean, it sounds like you've got a good plan ahead. You started out very creditably and wisely, and it's taken you to a number of different good places. I see nothing but good things ahead of you, and fortunately, with the show like this, we can revisit, a year down the road or whatever down the road, see what else new is happening with you. Do you have anything kind of that you wish that you could do, but you just don't see a way to do it? I mean, do you have, like a special project or maybe, you've talked about a full feature film. Are you thinking about animating? Are you thinking about live action? Where are you going to go with the whole filmmaking thing?
Well, with the whole Xmoor Studios, my plan is to make it into a multimedia company where we've already worked on some limited animation, which if you go to my site, you could check it out. So we've had the animation. I have several properties also that's ready to go on there because, like I said, I love to write worlds and universes. So I've already created background stories on like 2 major animation ideas, and I'm just waiting for, to get with a studio that's going to, go in and we just get it done. So I'm looking at that as doing animation, doing film. Like, of course, everybody has their baby projects that they got, if you can get the funding for it or whatever, that you want to go full throttle on it. So I have some big-time ideas for some, big effects movies that's going on. But, those are the ones that sit in the back of the closet unless you're making, the right bucks and the right connections. So
yeah, but, even that doesn't guarantee success. I mean, I think we can all say that for the most part, a film like Pacific Rim was very disappointing, Yeah. And so just because you have the money and just because you have the studio backing, again, that too doesn't assure success. I mean, we've had a lot of movies go bust this summer. That we normally would have thought would have been blockbusters. So again, just because you have either a track record in one thing or you've been able to put together solid product in a different genre, there's obviously no automatic benchmark for success. And it's funny. You look at something like, what was it? Blair Witch Project, for whatever they made, just because it was so different, it got a lot of attention and made a lot of money. And I think that all of us who are creatives want to find that special thing that's, never been seen or is different enough that people go, oh man, you should have seen this. It wasn't like anything I'd ever seen before.
Exactly.
So is that how you're kind of pushing out toward what you want to do with all of your multimedia concerns?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
And the point is, like you said, it doesn't make any difference because we know too many individuals that got money and are capable of doing it. But then you look at the final product and you're like, that was the best you could do with all the funding and all the money you got going on. Because I see so much in like Hollywood and all of it. It's all flash. They don't worry about if they have a good story, then the film isn't that, well done. Or if they have, great special effects, it lacks in the story aspect of it. It's like Pacific Rim had the visuals, but to me it was like, what happened with the story? And you paid all that money and you couldn't get like a writer to really evolve the characters because they were two-dimensional to me.
Yeah,
but
obviously that was an effects movie. And then, again, let's go back to black filmmaking. How do you get a budget for a movie that's going to be a little bit of pricey? Obviously fantasy and science fiction require, effects. They require a budget that will allow a director and the producer to put something good together. But if they don't get it, then you're kind of hosed because then you get a black Sharknado. Although, I don't understand why everybody in Hollywood wants to be in the sequel to that, but apparently they do. I think they're actually going to go and do it in New York.
In New York,
time.
Yes, they are. They're doing it in New York.
It was funny because I don't know if you saw in the news a few days ago, somebody left a large shark in the subway, and I'm thinking, that was some brilliant marketing there that was unintended. Or maybe they were going to do Shark Muter, for shark commuters. I don't know, but every now and then you see something silly like that, and you go, how did that get made? And then after, in the next breath, after how did that get made, they're going, yeah, but they're doing a sequel.
Exactly.
So, again, obviously somebody's sleeping with the right people. Because how do you get the money for that? What's going to be next? Snake NATO, because everybody copies. Well, they had Pacific Rim and then Atlantic Rim. You had two asteroid movies at a time. It's almost like Hollywood has just bred the creativity out of the people who do the writing for them.
Also, I think it's also like that round table effect of they got everybody in there, but it's not really the creative people anymore. They're taking the soul out of Hollywood and replaced it with the business. And, you can't get creative because, the business people just go shocked that you would dare try to create an original story without having already a ground base and, a box office attached to it before you even put the film out. Like, that's why they keep doing all these films that have been,
done before,
20 years back, done before. And it's amazing that people don't want to see original content most of the time.
And the backstory to that is let's bring this back around to what you talked about at the very beginning. Okay, so you have an opportunity, you have a deal, you have a studio that's going to create your work, and the first thing the studio guy does is he pees all over it and tries to change everything about it. That's one of those WTF moments. Why did you pay for this if it wasn't what you wanted?
Let me tell you something. They wrote a screenplay behind my back. I kept asking them about it. And they wrote the screenplay to deal with the characters. Now, this is an action-adventure film about martial arts. They changed my character. In the first 10 pages, she was having sex. Yeah. She was walking around with a Hello Kitty pack on her back, shooting out tentacles. She was having sex with one of the co-stars, your co-character's father, and come to find out they were brother and sister. I don't know where that came from.
Yeah.
Okay. And I asked the guy, what was this? And he goes like, you don't like it?
Yeah, well. I'm all for gratuitous nudity. I mean, I'll be honest, but damn, Look, we're in the last few minutes here. We're going to wind this up, but let me do some reminders before we go. For those of us for those of you listening, obviously, thank you for being here. But I would ask that everybody who checks out the show try to tell as many people about it as possible, because we do podcast the show very shortly after it's done. Somebody wrote crack is a terrible thing. Well, that's true. And and someone else says, but I like it though. But the thing is that since not a lot of people are available on Friday nights, let people know that these shows are available. We get to talk to some of the best black creatives out there in science fiction, fantasy, comic books, novels, movies, and spread the word, because it's very important that we build our own audience. That's the deal. It's hard to get discovered. So if you can maybe refer somebody to, I heard this great guy who was on, he's got this thing called, Xmoor Studios, and then all of a sudden, maybe a few more eyes get to see it, and then a few more eyes get to see it. So let people know about this radio show. Check it out if you can check it out online. We are live at 9 p.m. Eastern Time every Friday night, and, of course, follow it down the clock all through the other time zones. And one of the things that I like to do is I want to thank everybody for listening in, and especially, I want to thank you, Robert, for making my evening easy. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's not, but you made it very easy, and I had a good time. I hope you did too.
Oh, definitely. This was fun. Definitely fun. Thank you for the opportunity.
And we're gonna try to get you back, because we like to keep track of people and see what they're doing. And again, don't forget to put all of your events up on the events calendar. And for those of you who are listening, frequently visit the events calendar, because you never know what you're going to find that may be in your neighborhood. And since we're winding down to the last minute or so, I'm going to ask our peerless leader if he has his closing words for us tonight.
Hey, thanks. I want to, as always, I probably need to just record this, but I want to thank you, William, for hosting the show. I want to thank Mr. Robert Garrett for coming on the show tonight and sharing his wisdom and experience and humor with us tonight, and everybody that participated on the show, that comes here and listens to the show and spreads the word about it each week. And as usual, I want you to visit the site, check out videos, and get active on the site. There's great stuff on there, books, comics, videos, forums, blogs, all types of good stuff. And we're going to continue to support you and what you're doing. Just try to support us as well. So I want to thank everybody for participating, and it was a wonderful show as always. With that, I'm going to close out.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. I'm going to head over to the chat room. You guys are welcome to stay here or continue on with some after talk. You can talk with some of the people live that are in the chat room. But I'm going to stop the recording now.